All right, everybody in the Burnout to Badass group. Superstars, what's up? It's happening. This is Adam Von Ens, co-founder of Move, Think, Smile, and I'm sitting here with the founder, Elia Facheron. And today, we're getting into something really, really interesting, and I've got just a tiny, tiny story to share about this, and that is, it's really cold where we are. Now, a lot of you are going to laugh right now because we live we're in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's like 50 to 55 degrees, and we're freezing our asses off, and we're just not used to it. And it reminds me of what we're talking today, and it's like, check your focus. And I know, Elia, that a lot of times in the past, when I felt like things were cold around me, and I wasn't really, and I was feeling kind of stressed out, I would really start diving into like super, super duper details. And I would start focusing on perfectionism. I was focusing on, is that period not only the right color and type and font, is it the right pixel and the right this, and like just stupid stuff. And sometimes I would just make up imaginary details that didn't exist. So tell us a little bit more about what we're doing today, because we're in the 7 steps of ending your burnout, and this is number 5, right?
Yes. And we're really just going to dive into, overwhelm, burnout, anxiety, fatigue. I mean, the cause might be surprising to you, and this is one that we see a lot, which is, you just get laser focused on the wrong stuff. And what I mean by that is Adam, like you said, it's the endless minutia, it's the problems, and it is a belief that you must get things done right or perfect. Now, I know a lot of people out there are kind of self-proclaimed perfectionists, but even those who don't think they are, let me tell you, everyone has a perfectionist inside them for some topic or another. So you might actually be surprised. You are probably going to notice yourself in some of the things that we're talking about today, even if you don't think you are a perfectionist.
Yeah, so sit around guys, you feel like this. Are you in constant frustration and disappointment with yourself and others for not living up to ideal standards? Do you think your performance is impressive because you work so much? Do you find it hard to move on to the next project because you haven't finished that thing and it's just not where it needs to be, and you keep tweaking and dicking around with it? And do you find yourself, getting upset or lashing out at like the people that you love because the T's not crossed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's give an example. It's like you're saying, like, if you're in constant frustration or confusion or disappointment because other people aren't living up to your ideal standards, what's really important to see here is, do you have expectations for people that they don't even know that you have for them? And also, just really realizing that, there is a level of trust that's not happening when you feel like no one's living up to your standards. There is a expectation that you have that they won't get this done correctly, or you see something that they're doing wrong, and it starts driving you nuts because you think you know exactly what their actions are going to lead to.
Right.
And go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you so focused on the small things around you, like, I've got to do this, I have to do these things for other people, that you're just not taking care of what really needs to be taken care of, and that's yourself.
Yeah. And another way we see this is like, if you are really struggling to make decisions quickly, and you have kind of this innate skill to see all sides of the coin, and you're just like, oh my God, you get paralyzed, right? You come into like, should I make this decision or this, which way should I go? And you start drilling in on the tiniest things, trying to figure out what's going to weigh the scale or tip the scale into one way or another. And next thing you know, you're wasting hours and hours, and you're not getting the real stuff done because you're connected to these tiny little decisions, things that are spinning in your head over and over. And the reason you're doing that is because you're trying to make the right choice, right, the right decision, right?
Right, but why are we stuck in trying to make the right decision all the time? Like, what is that code for?
Yeah, so the right decision is code for being able to please everyone, getting the perfect expected outcome. And it's also about really the fear that whatever decision you make is going to be the wrong one. And that really comes from a cycle of the other shoe is always going to drop. This idea that whatever I choose, whatever decision I make, it's always going to be the wrong one. And that leads you down a path to be extremely anxious about making any decision. And then, of course, there's the big one, which I want to throw in, which is judgment. Fear of judgment.
Okay. So what I want to ask you is, so really, like for me, because I grew up in a house where, and Dad, I love you so much, but he was so focused on the details that when we would have to wash and wax the station wagon, the navy blue 1978 Oldsmobile, that if we didn't open the door and wax the door jambs, we would have to go back and do the entire thing because the wax wouldn't dry at the right time, right? So there wasn't an elusive bond around the edge of the door. And I hated that. But I found myself being the same way with my kids. And then it wasn't until about, 5 or 6 years ago that I realized my focus on details was a cover-up for not dealing with my own crap.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So many people that when they get into a stressed environment and they start feeling, overwhelmed or anxiety, and it just happened to me not too long ago either. And, it's like you want something to happen so fast that in order to just let it do its thing, you sit there and you keep messing with it and you keep fidgeting in it and you want to paint over here and you want to tweak this and you want to adjust this pixel over here and you want to put this sentence at the bottom of your email and you want to do this and you want to do this, and next thing you know, you've just lost like 3 days of your time dealing with stuff that didn't need to be tweaked with. Like it was just fine. But instead you're so nervous about moving on and you're so stressed out because something in your life hasn't happened yet that you're how do you say it? You're effed up. I mean, you're just totally it just happened to me last week. We created this this ad, and it was in Facebook, and it wasn't doing what I thought it was going to do as fast as it wanted to, and over a 3-day period, anything really happens in 3 days, right? And so I spent 15 hours just looking at every pixel and every P and every T and every period, and of course I completely missed half the stuff that was even a typo. Then I looked at, okay, what happens if people click here? What if I remove the button? What if I do this? What if I do this? And I kept, refresh. And I was so paying attention to the details that I completely lost my focus on what I should be doing. And that is being in here in the group with you guys and actually talking about stuff to help you improve your life.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. And I mean, really that comes from the sense of fear, right, that the ad isn't going to work, or maybe the fear that your team isn't going to do the right thing that's needed, or the fear that your business partner isn't doing what they need to be doing. And so we think if we get in there and control all those little details, if we fix them and if we stay on them, like a overbearing mother or something, that gives us a temporary relief from that fear because we feel like we're in control, but it doesn't work, does it?
Somebody just posted, watch Adam Ruins Everything. You'll love that show. My name's Adam, by the way, and I'm really, really good at that. In fact, I'm on a mission to ruin Christmas for everybody watching this right now. So hopefully that does not work out for y'all. Also, Sean posted, he said, this is so true because I used to be in corporate America way back when. He's like, this behavior, is paying attention to minor detail is an endemic in corporate America. And, Elia, so the focus, the laser focus on this insane detail to minor, this attention to minor details. Why? Let's dive into that some more. Why the hell is that really happening?
Yeah, so, I think if we really go back to the judgment piece, because, of course, we all have this fear of being judged, that, we want to be able to perform. We want to impress people. We want to show others our value, our worth. And so especially for those of us that are really good already at paying attention to the details can get really stuck in this trap because it's like, okay, this is my job, this is my purpose, to pay attention to the details. And my sense of value or worth to the company or to my business all relies on me being able to do this. Now, there's not an inherent problem with paying attention to the details, but when it consumes you all day or for long periods of time, you completely forget what your why is, why you're doing this, what the big picture is. And of course, Adam, like you said, I mean, what you really want to be doing. The things that really have a big impact on your life or your business or your career.
Right. So let's go back. Let's go back to Sean's comment about, overly focused to minor detail. Overly focused to minor detail. At first you might think, okay, this is someone trying to climb the corporate ladder, someone who really wants to show off. Look what I was able to do. But I can tell you that the people running the show really don't give a shit about the detail. They don't care about the how-to. What they care about is the result, right? They care about the outcome. They want to know, okay, in 3 words or less, were you able to X without Y? Were you able to make this happen without spending too much money or wasting too much time or, pissing too many people off, right?
Yeah.
Or without, watching too many of our customers go away. Were you able to do that? That's the only thing that they care about. How do you X without Y? But it's the people down below, and I think it's because it's that stress factor, right? It's that overwhelm, right? It's that anxiety because they're so worried about performing. They're so worried about peak performance, and if it doesn't happen, they're like, I need to do all this detail stuff.
Yeah. And all the what ifs about what's going to go wrong. And, the thing with details is that so many things can change with details, right? Like it doesn't take too many details to stack up on one to another to create a huge amount of change. But we can get really caught up in a lot of the drama of the details. So it's like, one little thing shifted, or there's one little change here, or our company went down by, 5% or whatever. And all of a sudden our brain takes that and snowballs it into, oh my gosh, we're down 5%. We could be out of business in 6 months, blah, 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 blah. It just kind of snowballs, right? We tend to let the details ball up into drama, and this completely throws us off the productivity bus. And, again, this is really about how do you get clear on what minutia, what trivial things, or what important details you really need to focus on, and how can you just let go of the rest so that you can really stay focused on why you're even doing this, and Adam, like you said, what is the final result? How do you get to the result that you want?
Right. X without Y. That's what people really, really care about. Man, I am so guilty of just trying to wow everybody and doing everything else that you pay attention to detail and you lose sight of the outcome. Yes, details are important to a point, right? But you got to be really careful how much detail you're really putting into something, because a lot of times it's a cover-up and you start wearing it as, like Ellie likes to say, it's like my badge of honor. Look at how much work I'm doing. You go anywhere these days and you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? They're like, slammed. I'm crazy. I'm busy. It's like that's the new way of saying hello. And if you're not like that, then they don't want to talk to you because, well, if you're not busy, crazy, slammed, then you should be. How come you don't pay attention to that thing, or how come you don't pay attention to this thing, right, Elio?
Yes. And I think for anybody out there, if you've got your own business, or even maybe if you do a lot of writing or you do work for a company for their website stuff, you can get stuck in font anxiety.
Oh God, dude, that's so me.
Fonts. And what your brain will come up with, that means if you don't have the perfect font, that, the business is not going to work, or no one's going to read your blog post.
I had somebody tell me not long ago, I built a website for one of our past businesses, and I put it all together, and I'm like, and I was, looks like, hey, how can I get more conversion on this? How can I get better response rate? And somebody's like, you're using the wrong font. It's like, conversion rates are always better if you use this typeface versus this typeface. And I was looking at it and I'm like, And he's like, yours is just too rounded. And I'm like, man, I wonder if mine looks clownish or not, right? You know, I'm talking about some of those big clown happy fonts that people like to put in their texts or their emails. You open it, you're like, I can't even read this. I went and looked at it, I'm like, I can look really deep. I'm like, well, the E and the O, yeah. And then I got like super focused. I'm like, oh my God. So I got to try every different typeface that's out there. So I went in and started doing all these research studies. I started reading all this stuff. I set up split tests all over the place. And I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen here. It's going to happen here. It's going to happen here. And I realized it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Yeah, some of the detail that we don't have a clown font for sure. But let this guy just like put into my head that I need, what it ended up happening is like, he had no suggestions that were of really any value. He could have just gone, dude, it looks great. I like it. And it's like, you know, if you really want some detailed stuff, I could tell you. But he wanted to seem like he knew what he was talking about. And it just threw me into a blither. And instead, all I had to say is like, okay, do I really need to get in there and change the font? No,
yeah, this comes back to the bigger picture, right? And what it was you were really up to and what it was that you wanted to create for people. And that's exactly a perfect example of how these details can throw us off into a whole nother like stratosphere for a week at a time. And so it's really important that you check yourself, you check your focus on these little things because, next thing you know, you kind of get lost. Another thing that I see people do a lot is they worry that like if they don't focus on the details, that no one else will. Now this is like a belief system as well. And this belief system can get you into all kinds of trouble because it leads actually to a lot of resentment because you're not trusting your team, you're not trusting other people, and you feel like you're the only person to get the job done, which is a massive weight on your shoulders, right? Now you feel even more pressure to do it right, to hold that part of the ship.
So, Elliot, we've got a question. And, guys, we forgot to say this at the beginning of the show. Normally do. Totally forgot about it. We can see your question, but we can't see who it's coming from because we use a software called Ecamm, and in order to be able to see who you are, we need you to go to this link, ecamm.live. 8F2885. I'll post a link later. You don't have to do it right now. But just so you guys know, when it really helps us. What I want to do is, Ellie, we've got a question. Mm-hmm. I wish I could tell you who it's from. And the question is, for the OCD, which I'm thinking that's a obsessive compulsive disorder, you know, we look for some sort of permission to function in a new way. It's very hard to redesign your DNA. Mm-hmm. So did you catch that?
Yeah, looking for permission.
Yeah, so OCD, we look for some sort of permission to function a new way, but she's saying it's really hard to redesign your DNA. Okay, yes, it is really hard to it's not redesigning your DNA. Okay, so it has nothing to do with your DNA. It has everything to do with how your neural network and how your brain is wired. If you guys are familiar with the new modern health science term of neuroplasticity, and that they've actually been able to show that a habit is nothing more than a neuron connected to a cell over here. And of course, your brain is designed to be as efficient as possible, right, Elia? Mm-hmm. And it's much easier to think what you did yesterday than it is to think a new thought today. That's why 95% of the stuff you do today is what you did yesterday. And that's why, for a lot of people, it's really, really, really tough to get out of overwhelm or disorders, as they call it, like OCD or ADD or things like that. And a lot of times, it's just because you have a past learned behavior. It's kind of like Pavlov's dog, you know? They rang the bell so many times and the dog just starts salivating. And he's just got that neural network. But you can unlearn that behavior. We've got video now, scientists have got video now, where the neuron will actually release from the brain cell and attach to a new one once that new habit is formed. Right? So yes, so looking for permission in a new way, yes, it's very hard to redesign or rewire. It can be hard to rewire your brain if you're not following the right strategy, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and it also, the permission piece is huge. That's the section that I really want to hone in on, and that really has a lot to do with creating the identity of who you are and who you want to be, and really figuring out, what's it going to take to give yourself that permission. Which is huge. And that comes back to this idea that really underpins a lot of what I believe burnout, anxiety, and fatigue, the way we see it with working professionals, is that sense of being worthy enough. Right. Worthy enough to have the permission to just let go of the details. Being trusting that they will be taken care of, and your boat won't sink if you don't do it.
Right. So keeping on the topic of focus, but worthiness at the same time.
Yeah.
And I had so much shit fed down my throat about how I was not worth it. It started in the first grade when my teeth were coming in weird, and I had a fat tongue, and my head was too big for my body. And I was labeled with a speech. I was labeled with a speech impediment, and I had to go in and meet with a counselor almost daily for like a year. And I would have to talk into this old school push button box tape recorder and look at myself in the mirror, then hear myself, and I freaking hated it. I hated it so much, but I was afraid to talk to anybody. And that became social anxiety for me because I was told in the first grade that I had a speech impediment just because my freaking head hadn't developed. But yet I was acing my classmates in everything, academically anyways. But when it came to like social and birthday parties, I was afraid to even go because of the way I sounded, because I was told I had this speech impediment. And then let's move a few years later into high school. Then I'm told I have a bipolar disorder. So because I have this social anxiety about going out in public still in high school, right, because I feel like I can't talk right, or I don't know how to ask people the right questions, or whatever is going on in my head that's completely imaginary, which I know now. I didn't think it back then. I'm told that, well, sometimes you're really talkative and sometimes you're not. So I was labeled as having bipolar disorder. And I'm like, and then that completely messed with me for the next 20 years, right? Until I figured out about 10 years ago, no, I don't have bipolar disorder. I don't have that at all. That's just a cop-out for when somebody fits outside the norm and they're not following the status quo. Some people are faster, some people are slower. That's fine. When people are faster at things, they call them superstars. When people are slower at things, they call them disorders. And it's bullshit. Mm. Right?
In the details here, like what's important about the details, the minutia, and what you were just saying in that story.
What's that?
I said, what's important about the details and the minutia that you took away from that with that story?
I ended up getting my focus on, right? So I ended up spending so much time OCDing, right? Then I got labeled that too because I would spend so much time on my hair. Like, is every hair in the right place? So I look good before I can go out. So it wasn't just speaking. It became like disorders all over the place. I was told I had disorders, so I would just pay attention to detail so much. Almost so I didn't have to look up from my desk, right, and have to interact with anybody because I was so embarrassed of what I thought I was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's where the details, that kind of stuff, it can feel like I was saying, like a 2-ton boulder on your shoulders. It feels like you can't move. It's like the details are just like crushing you, right? It's just like, oh my God, there's so many details to manage, so many things to do. And that's where I think we fall into that cycle that if I can just get all these details taken care of, that I'll finally be able to relax, right? And I won't be burnt out, and I won't have anxiety, and yeah.
Yeah, well, that didn't work for me. So the first time that happened, got out of grad school, had 2 kids, started really young, and had a kick-ass job, traveling around the planet, working in agriculture, and doing cool internet stuff before the internet even really anybody knew about it. And I was and again, because of the stuff I had been told in high school and down there in elementary school, I ended up focusing so much on details that it ruined my relationship, and I ended up getting a divorce, right? And so that threw me into a realm of overwhelm and anxiety and worthlessness, right? So I tried moving 5 states away and getting a job, and only to actually was making crazy money for as young as I was. Financially, I was doing fantastic, but I was miserable. I went from 190 to 245 pounds in like 5 months. And it's all because I was focused on the details, and I was not looking at what the big problems were that I really needed to take care of. The stuff that I was focusing on was a coping mechanism.
Yeah. And literally, too, I mean, I would say this, it's like when you have an over focus on the details, you literally start, like your life and everything starts shrinking, right? Because it's just, even think about it, like you're just looking at the details and everything, you just kind of start shrinking into this experience when you want to just really be able to, see the details, but you need to be able to expand sometimes as well. And again, you really want to be careful about what it is that you're believing about the details, what that means about you. So let's talk about some of the things not to do that can really aggravate this attention to details. And some of those things are, waking up in the morning and immediately thinking about your to-do list. Now, I know for me, there was a long time when I had to really stop myself from doing this, but I would wake up and immediately just be like, to-do list, ding, 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 ding. Okay, these are all the things I have to do. And before I even got out of bed, I was completely overwhelmed and like, how am I going to make it through this day?
Yeah, or if you're like me, you would go to bed thinking about your to-do list and wouldn't freaking sleep until 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny it's funny how humans who are supposedly experts in productivity have turned us into stress addicts. And I'm going to go way back into the 90s when I got my first day planner made by a certain company that was well known for personal development and productivity experts. Only to figure out that damn day planner was my crux for so long and caused me so stressed because every time I looked at it, I didn't want to open it. Because I'd written down so much in there, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I just started throwing out pages, And it wasn't until I actually got rid of that and I started saying, what are the 1 or 2 things that I can focus on today that are going to turn this day into a badass day, that are really going to make forward momentum for me, that are really going to help me make progress?
Yeah, and that kind of leads to an important point, which is that, of course there are details that we can't just chunk out of our life, but there are some absolutely that we can get rid of. And if the details that you can't get rid of are driving you nuts, then it's time to change the way that you're seeing them, and it's time to change your beliefs around those little to-dos and that minutia, because whatever it is that you're thinking about the minutia, that's actually worse than doing the things that are on your list and taking care of all those tiny details. So you've got to be careful that you don't have the ton of resistance against doing the small things, but then also what you're thinking about it. Because if you're thinking it sucks, then, of course you feel exhausted and fatigued and burnt out because, look at how you're approaching it, right?
Right. It's part of the approach, but it's also part of just like, what's really important? What's really important?
And this is a question I don't think people ask enough. We say, okay, I'm going to set my goals at, January 1st. And I mean, we've all heard this story, right? And then we don't finish it. And really, once a month is not enough. Like, we're bombarded with so much information now. There's so many ways to get us off track. And there's so many details we could pay attention to, like, I don't know, if you like all the celebrities, or maybe you're into politics, or maybe you're an environmentalist. I mean, just even in those small categories, there are so many details, so many stories, so many things to hear that you can get completely thrown off really quickly. So you've got to ask yourself this question almost daily.
Yes. And what happens if you don't?
You get way off the mark.
Well, you get smacked upside the head with a to-do list is what you do.
Yeah, exactly. You drowned in your to-do list, and you're the way you're thinking about everything goes south really, really quickly, and that's what happens, of course, when you get into overwhelm. And
so that's the cost, right?
The cost is overwhelm, and again, those hits to your self-esteem, or that worry that people are judging you because you're not doing something just the right way. I know I said that earlier, but I want to keep talking about that because it's important to realize that you're going to be judged. Like, there is no not being judged or not being criticized. People are going to be doing that. I mean, that happens when you walk to the mailbox and somebody drives by and they see you. They're going to automatically have some kind of idea or judgment about you. So sometimes I think it's really relaxing to realize like, oh, I should just stop even trying to worry about how people are judging me because it's just going to happen anyways, right? And you can't control what other people are thinking about you, so, or the decisions that you've made.
Yeah, and it's I think for me, the cost of this is just like I felt a lot of anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I wasn't making progress, and I was conditioned to be perfect in so many things that I did that I just got mad, and it came out on my family.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the people in the house, right? But even my friends around me and my mom and dad, right? Who split up when I was 2, even those guys that came out on them, and then my brothers, and then it would just come out at random times when it's supposed to be, hey, we're having fun Saturday doing a football game or whatever it is, and just stupid resentment would come out just because it wasn't. I had all this stuff to do, or I didn't do it perfectly, or it's not working because I didn't do this, right? No, it's that's not the reason it's not working. It's not working because your head was in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess where it was?
In the details.
Yeah, up the details.
Up the details. Yeah. It just really, the costs are big. You don't necessarily realize sometimes how much time you are losing to not being able to be really decisive because you're stuck thinking about all the details and trying to figure out which one is, going to be the tipper for making this decision. And so, again, really want you guys to look and see how much time you're losing to being lost in these detail pieces, because what could you be doing with that time? What bigger picture, what bigger amounts of results could you be getting? And of course, the big thing is just not being stuck in overwhelm, because overwhelm, of course, you're paralyzed. You feel like, okay, I don't even know how to move forward. And that does. And Adam, the piece you talked about and I talked about earlier, the resentment piece is huge. And that really tears apart relationships.
It did. No, it did. I lost my wife, lost custody of the kids, lost my job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, all during that kind of first burnout phase. Right? No, my second burnout. My first burnout phase, my second burnout phase, and the third one was the one that took us down. And a lot of it came down to, the details and using that as an excuse or using that as a shield, right? To protect me from, I still don't know really what it was protecting me from, Ellie. Why do people like super duper dive into that? Like a lot of people go in there and use it as a barrier, hiding behind the details.
Yeah, well, when you hide behind the details, for someone that is so perfectionistic like that, it's, it's see my representative so that you can't actually, get to the real me, because, of course, you're scared, right? You're worried about the judgment. You're worried about what will happen if someone sees you in a certain light. So the perfection piece is really about holding up this certain facade because you feel like this is what's going to get you loved, this is what's going to get your needs met. But the problem is it backfires. It will eventually completely backfire on you.
So Ellie, we've got a few posts going on, and I'm trying to keep up with them. And one of them, and again, I can't see who this is from because we need to get their permission or to see it, but I can see the post. Let me make sure I take that off here, and here we go. And we were talking about the details getting down, and they said, but we freeze when our mind goes blank, because it's like looking for some authority to tell us that answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We do freeze. Freezing, again, it kind of goes back to that fight or flight thing. It's like you're trying to think of what answer you think that person wants you to give. Right? And then, of course, you can't come up with your own answer or even think what you really think when you're trying to say, okay, let me see if I can come up with the answer that this person wants me to say. Again, that kind of goes down into a lot of, pleasing behavior as well. And that perfection piece of like, let me be who you want me to be.
Right. So Elliot, what should they, instead of like, what's some advice you can give us, instead of like, checking on your focus, and what can we do?
Yeah, so with checking on your focus, again, it comes back to really trying to figure out the cost of what's happening here, if you notice the cost, then you're actually going to want to do something about it. If you don't notice how much time and energy that being sucked into the details is costing you or is having an effect on you, then you won't actually do anything about it. So it's really getting that awareness back, getting that awareness piece, and saying, okay, I'm burnt out, I'm anxious, and I'm exhausted. Why? What's happening in my life? What are the things that I'm doing on a regular basis that could be causing this? You know, where is my focus? And it's like we say a lot too. It's like, you know, you need to really ask yourself if something is giving you energy or it's taking energy away from you. That's a good starting point, a good place to start looking about whether something is really important to do or not.
Exactly. It is. So So if we check on our focus and we're like, okay, yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I look at my details. I'm really kind of absorbed in those, and it's really hard not to, and it's hard to break that cycle. Can you give us some advice?
Yeah, so for this one, it's really about getting connected to your why, because the why leads you to the bigger picture, right? So what is the bigger picture? What is it that you're trying to do? And most importantly, what is burnout telling you? And if you really sit with this question, there are some pretty amazing things that will start to pop up if you're open to hearing it. So it's really, again, this is an opportunity for people to just realize, what is this burnout asking me to do? And how can I be decisive and resourceful in changing my life? Because obviously I feel like crap now, and that's not what God wants for you, right? And who's the mentor, you know, we hear him say this all the time, and I love this saying. I'd never heard it before, but he's like, you know, God doesn't make junk, and he didn't start with you. And, you know, this guy that we've been talking to, you know, this isn't a super religious thing. He's just saying you are a precious gift, and you are not junk, but you are treating yourself like junk right now. When you're in burnout, when you're in anxiety, when you're in fatigue, when you're in overwhelm, you're not taking care of yourself.
Right. So I think some of the problem, I mean, if anybody was like me, you know, I had really hard time. It's like, I didn't really know what I wanted. I mean, I know what my career wanted me to do, and I had my career goals, and I had my budget, and a few other things like that. But it's like the clarity part. So if you're having trouble with clarity, you're probably focusing on the details way too much. And if you're having trouble with clarity, what can people do?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny that you say that. You know, it's like clarity and you're having trouble focusing on the details. It almost sounds like, you know, an oxymoron. But really what they need to do is build a belief that no matter how much, you know, minutia you have to face, that actually minutia and the details and the small things is something that you get to do. The things on your to-do list, you get to do those. And this is really going back to this idea that I was saying, which is you've got to really decide and understand that you have this opportunity to do this, and you've got to switch your mindset around what are the things that you know you have to do, and get rid of everything else.
Right. Okay, guys. So thank you for tuning in today. A lot of great interaction. We really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to post them here. If you have any sensitive issues you'd like to just run by us, feel free to private message either myself or Elia. And look, if you guys are just way too focused on things, if you're running around carrying, you know, I'm busy, I'm slammed as a badge of honor, and you know that you become anal retentive on so much stuff and that it's really impacting the rest of your life because the details aren't perfect, then we ask you to check on your focus. And if you want some help checking on your focus, we do invite you to book a call with us. It's free, and all you got to do is go over to movethinksmile.com/apply. And that's the wrong one. And Elia, when they get on the phone with us, we like to talk about, there it is, movethinksmile.com/talk. And we invite you guys to come over and chat with us. And it's about a 45-minute call. It's free, and we get laser focused. Speaking of check your focus, right? Elia, tell them a little bit about what we do.
Well, we really spend about 45 minutes and we just figure out, okay, we get really clear on what's not working in your life, but most importantly, what's stopping you from changing that? What's got you stuck?
Right.
And then, of course, what is it that you really want to build? What does peak performance in your life mean? Because, of course, we've all kind of got a little bit, slightly different definition of exactly, specifically how this is going to show up in your life. But that is something you really need to understand and get clarity on. Otherwise, you will never know if you've ever reached it, right? You've got to make sure you have a clear idea about what is the freedom you want, what is the energy you want, what is the cash flow you want, and, how is peak performance going to get you there?
Yeah, and if you're wondering, how can I get to X without Y? Definitely go to movethinksmile.com/talk, schedule a time to book with Ellie or myself, and we'd love to kind of walk you through that. Ellie and I went through some crazy stuff. We've dealt with all this insaneness when it comes to, you name the word: anger, rage, overwhelm, anxiety, fatigue. What are the other ones out there? OCD, bipolar, depression. Oh my God, I don't have enough room to list the medications I went on. But you don't have to live that way, right? And so if you're way over focused on stuff, or you're having trouble focusing on the right thing, or you don't know what direction you're going, and you want some help finding your true north, and you're ready to just get rid of the overwhelm and start having more impact on your family and at work, go ahead, book a call with us.
We definitely would love to have a conversation with you. And again, guys, like we've said before, if something that we said really resonated with you today, just type it down into the chat box so that when people are watching this at some other time, maybe there's something that they'll just scoot by, they'll just see your comment, and maybe it will really affect their day in a really positive way because you put that comment there about something that really affected you in the live today.
Right on. Guys, don't forget, we'll watch, if you're listening to us on our YouTube or if you're listening to this on podcast, come over to the Facebook group Burnout to Badass, Turning Anxiety and Fatigue into Peak Performance. There's a lot of great resources over here. There's a great crew of like-minded people. At the time that we're doing this, we've got roughly 12 to 1,300 just badass members who are in here. We screen everybody that comes in, so we do our best to keep out any of the trolls and the tramps and the spammers and the complainers and the blamers and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good group of people in here. And guys, we'll see you actually tomorrow. Elia, what are we talking about tomorrow?
Tomorrow we are actually talking about the topic of peak performance and what do you need to do to reach it. So that's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
After today's topic.
We're going to be going over the things that the top elite peak performers have that a lot of people don't. And this is going to be really exciting because I think most people in here would love to become a badass peak performer in all areas of their life. You want life to start firing in all cylinders again, right? So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. And also on Saturday morning, I'm going to be interviewing one of our clients, Brian Goldsberry, who went through his own bout of pretty bad burnout, divorce, job changes after job change after job change, and we're going to have him live here about 9:30 or 10 a.m. I can't remember the exact time. I think it's 10 a.m. Eastern time here in the Facebook group. Guys, come join us. You can ask some questions. And until then, rock out, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.